Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. I'm enormously excited to say that I get to start talking about Blue Reflection Second Light today. This is a game that I have been looking forward to a huge amount. I am the biggest fan of Blue Reflection out there. I think most people that know me know how much of a fan of Blue Reflection I really am. I did not expect that we would ever get a sequel to that game. I thought that a combination of the controversies about the fan service as such and the fact that the game didn't seem to sell particularly well would have dissuaded Koei Tecmo from ever making a sequel, but they seem to be pretty committed about turning this into a franchise. There's also an anime, which I enjoyed watching earlier in the year, and now this sequel, which is really quite remarkable. Now, before I start to talk about it, I do want to quickly say that all the footage that you're seeing on the screen here was captured on my PC from the preview code, and it was only captured at medium settings. There is a higher level of settings and the game does look prettier with those higher graphical settings turned on, but my computer is not a particularly powerful gaming device, so I dropped it down to medium so the frame rate would be more steady. I didn't feel like at the higher settings the frame rate was indicative of the quality of the game, and I didn't want people thinking that was to do with the game and not my PC. So I've dropped the graphical settings down a bit. It still looks pretty, of course, and we'll talk about why it looks pretty through this video, but I just wanted you all to know that this is not the best looking version of this game out there, and if you buy it on PlayStation or play it on the higher settings once the full game's released on PC, you're going to get a better experience visually as well. Right, so with that housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about the sequel to one of my favourite games of all time. I still remember the first time that I came across Blue Reflection. It was at a Tokyo Game Show and the developer, Gust, was there showing off what they were calling a Beautiful Girl trilogy. I think that's what they were calling it. 99% sure it was kind of this little branding thing that they were doing, and it was the Beautiful Girl trilogy because they had 3 games in development. There was an Atelier game, there was a Knights of Azure game, and then there was this, Blue Reflection. Now, Atelier and Knights of Azure were quite far along in development, and they were showing off gameplay and stuff. I think you could even play both of them. But Blue Reflection was nothing, just a poster. There was nothing else about it. And because it was a new IP, we had no idea what to expect from it. The only thing we knew about this game was that it was going to be one of the Beautiful Girl trilogy games. And that was a great poster for really catching my attention and making sure that when they started to reveal news for the game, I was paying attention to it. The art was done by Mel Kishida, of course, and Mel Kishida is a really good artist at drawing beautiful girls. He was the reason that I got into the Atelier series because he was the character artist for the Atelier Ireland series, and the art in those games really was what made me want to play them. So to see his work back with this new IP was another appealing element that made me pay attention to this poster and want to know more about it. And then, of course, the game came along and blew me away. The thing about Blue Reflection is that while it is a low-budget JRPG and Gust obviously didn't have much by way of resources to throw at it, the art direction in this thing is just impeccable. This is a beautiful game to look at and a really good example of how, to me, aesthetics is so much more important than technical brilliance. You can make a AAA game, but if it doesn't have a sense of aesthetics, then I'm not going to be as interested in it as I am with this one. Blue Reflection 2 is really much the same, which was immediately pleasant. They've obviously not had a big budget to work with this game, and that shows. But what they've done is make sure that every part of the game is beautiful to look at. The environments are not super detailed, but they are full of colour and vibrancy, and they're original environments that you haven't really seen before. The characters are not the most detailed characters, but they've done a great job of taking Mel Kishida's concept art and making sure you see that in the characters as you're playing as well. So you're immediately connected to the game through the art, and that is a really important thing. That was so important to Blue Reflection, and it's good to see that that has been retained for this one. The other thing that I'm absolutely thrilled about is that the narrative seems to have come back the storytelling structure, the way that Blue Reflection tells its story, is back. So the original Blue Reflection did have a reputation for being this fan servicey thing, mostly because people saw screenshots and then never bothered to play the game because they weren't into the fan service. But the people who did actually play the game, I think, discovered pretty early on that it wasn't that at all. It was this really sweet and wholesome and uplifting kind of coming of age story about this group of girls who bonded together to work through their common problems and their own personal demons. It was about helping one another. It was very positive. It was basically every positive word that you could think about mashed together. That was what this game was about. And it kind of recalled Atelier in that way, because Atelier is much the same thing. There's not really a negative vibe or spirit in any of those games, and to see that in Blue Reflection was great. Blue Reflection 2 does have the same quality about it. Now, I've only played the prologue and the first chapter because that was what the preview embargoes required that I did, and I'm not going to... I'm playing ball. I'm not going to go and play on until the review codes come along, but just from that prologue and first chapter, I got a really strong sense of exactly the same qualities. This is a game about a group of girls coming together to help one another through common problems. It's a very uplifting story. There's no negative energy through any of the relationships with these characters, and it's just all very positive, wholesome, and innocent. And I'm really enjoying the characters and the narrative precisely for that. I mean, we get so many video games these days thrive on negative energy, on overcoming revolution in Tales of Arise, or all the stuff that goes on, the eco-terrorism of Final Fantasy VII and all that. It's nice to have JRPGs that are just focused on simple, sweet, wholesome stories, and that's what Blue Reflection 2 is immediately giving me. Now, in some other areas, they have made some significant changes to the way that Blue Reflection works. It's mostly the mechanical side of things so far, and I am on board with all of those, really. Firstly, the combat system is now an action-based system with an ATB kind of countdown thing, where you can also build up attacks and become more powerful by missing turns. If they get the difficulty right, the balance there, then this game could be a really good one for people who enjoy to min-max, because there does seem to be a fair bit of complexity in there in terms of what you can do with that combat system. There's also stealth sections now. Now, I wasn't so sure about those, but I think they're going to play to the game's benefit, where you do need to avoid enemies. You can enter into this kind of infrared mode where you can see the sight range of the enemies and you can maneuver around it. At first, I wasn't so sure about it because I thought it was it felt a little bit arbitrary, but I do think now that it's going to give them some important gameplay variety. One of the things that people criticized about the original Blue Reflection was that it became very repetitive as it went on. I think that having the combat sections mixed up with the stealth sections will help to alleviate that. One thing that I'm not on board with, though, is the fact that they've got experience levels in there now. You do level up just like you do with every other JRPG. You may remember that with the original Blue Reflection, there wasn't experience levels. You got more powerful by helping your fellow students out, and each time you did that, you could level up your character, but you didn't get experience points from defeating enemies. I actually liked that, because that system really re-emphasized the positive spirit that I was talking about earlier in the video, that the game really is about relationship building and all, and coming together to help one another out. This more traditional combat system is just a traditional combat system, or experience system, sorry. It is just a traditional experience system now, so yeah, it loses a little bit of thematic impact there. But otherwise, this game is amazing. Look forward to my full review, because it is going to be absolutely incredibly positive, unless the game somehow breaks after this. But in the meantime, please do mash that like and subscribe button if you've enjoyed this video. That way you won't miss any others as I upload them. And please consider backing me on Patreon. You can do so for $1 a month, and in doing so, not only do you support these videos, but you also get the DD magazine, which is a 48-page monthly magazine with a lot of features on games like Blue Reflection. So that is worth your money, I would hope, if you enjoy your Japanese games. Alright everyone, thanks very much for this. Do let me know your thoughts about Blue Reflection in the comments. Otherwise, we will see you at the next video.